The main character of a story is obviously very important, and we all know how they work and what things make them work well. However, main characters do also have a hidden stat, and this would be value. If you have one main character in your story, that value will constantly change. How you approach, intertwine, and continue to evolve that value over the length of your story will represent the value of your main character. Put simply, how much should people really care? If you put a lot of value into your main character and their worth for this story, people will care. That's obvious. This is really easy when you have one main character. As long as their value is usually higher than every other character, clearly that's your main. But what if you had multiple main characters? Let's say 3, for example. Well, then everything starts to change. This is Choujin X by Sui Ishida, the author of Tokyo Ghoul, and he has 3 main characters, and their value and how he plays on them are entirely different and constantly changing. To fully understand these incredible 3 main characters from Choujin X, I need to tell you a bit about the story. One moment, I have a free Patreon that you can join and an exclusive weekly manga podcast talking about all of these stories every week. If you do want to support me and for extra goodies, there are options. I would highly appreciate it. Link is in the description. Don't miss out. Choujin X's story is about a prophecy, and a being known as X will either completely annihilate the world or be its savior. This prophecy is not legitimate, however, and there's a lot of fighting between groups on whether or not this prophecy even exists to begin with. So when things start to come true within this prophecy, that final calamity and a being known as X, either a savior or destroyer, starts to look more and more real. One of these 3 characters is potentially that X, and you don't know who it is. And the way Ishida does this is by shifting their value constantly. Tokio and Azuma are the biggest focus in Choujin X's story. Their relationship, their bond, their powers, their evolution, thematically what they represent, emotionally how they feel towards each other, and the destructive force and nature that they both uphold feel really fitting for this oncoming prophecy and calamity that one of these 2 could actually be X. And as you explore each of these characters separately and together, you start to unravel more of their secrets. Who could be this mysterious X? So we shift their value of a main character back and forth between them. We get a lot of beautiful development for Tokio, someone that starts off very meek and innocent, following in the footsteps of his best friend Azuma. Azuma starts off very heroic, like a lion. Brave, never cowers in the face of adversity, but over their evolution, they would completely change. Tokio would become more confident, more empowering, more uplifting, and Azuma would become more isolated, more unknown, more confused. Where they start and where they are currently is almost night and day, but there is turmoil between them. What started off as being very close friends from childhood and facing the world together puts them at odds end, not only because of their mindset and how they evolve, but also because of what they represent to each other. Tokio sees Azuma not only as a friend, but as a hero. Azuma sees Tokio as someone that he will take with him on this journey, as someone that needs to be protected and uplifted. But when the switch happens, that completely crumbles. Tokio no longer views Azuma that way, and Azuma starts to despise Tokio for everything that he isn't. In the plight of their growing relationship and the turbulence between it, their value shifts constantly. You get a lot of time spent with Tokio, and you get a lot of time spent with Azuma. And with this pressing calamity and the idea of X and witnessing their powers and what they're capable of, technically you could put X on either side. Maybe it's Tokio, maybe it's Azuma. But secretly, in the background, is the 3rd main character. Someone whose value is almost non-existent in the front, but does so much work behind the scenes to prop everyone else, almost like they're hiding. This is Ely. Ely is the 3rd main character of Choujin X, but she is not a primary focus. Her value is sidelined quite often as being used to help propel Tokio and Azuma and their value. Now, this isn't a fault of decision making or Sui Ishida's writing, but a purposeful tool to misdirect readers. While all of your attention is on Tokio and Azuma with Ely helping them, you completely miss what is actually building for her. And as soon as Ishida starts to juice her value way more, you start to see everything that you missed. Ely is arguably the most important character in this story, because right from the beginning, before we even had context for abilities and how the world works and even this prophecy, she was a bit of an anomaly. Ely survived a Choujin attack that took place on a plane, and she survived this, which turned her into a Choujin. Over time, we come to understand that this isn't actually true, or at least not the way that we think. There was a plane crash, Ely did indeed turn into a Choujin, but she's not a typical Choujin. She is what is considered a thief, someone that is able to absorb other Choujin powers, basically loading up on them and being a vessel or a house for all of these different Choujin abilities. And no one really understands why this is possible from Ely. And as soon as the story starts to slowly explain that, you can start to piece the puzzle yourself. It is at this time where you start to question her involvement in the story and whether or not she could actually be this prophesized X. The value of Tokyo and Azuma at these points also start to dwindle. They get sidelined a little bit, and Ely takes a lot more of that focus. We're playing this cat and mouse game between them. And even now within the recent chapters of Choujin X, with massive revelations and big turning points, still the idea of who this X isn't actually clear. But their values as characters has skyrocketed and almost flipped 180. Tokyo has now taken more of a backseat than ever. Azuma has risen quite prominently, and Ely sits right at the top. At this current point, she is the most valued character in this story, and it only took Ishida 4 years of building to get to this point. What's funny is that this moment also represents the true story. See, what you need to understand is that up to this point, we've been getting what I consider the prologue, pretty much the story before the story, and that the actual narrative and the design behind the prophecy starts now. And what do you know, Ely is front and center, leading the charge into what is the actual story of finding out who is Choujin X, this bringer of calamity or its ultimate savior. These three are incredible characters, and Ishida does a fantastic job to explore them both independently, mentally, emotionally, physically, but he also likes to explore them together. And what you get is this very beautiful development between them that feels incredibly human and natural. When you're entering this world that you were never meant to be a part of, there's a big learning process, and that's what they have to come to understand. And because of that learning process, learning to become Choujin and learning to use their powers and learning to put that usage in the right places, their mindset starts to change. The reason Azuma changes so much is because he loses what made him special as a child. That heroic, brave nature now is a dime a dozen. He feels left behind when other people skyrocket over him. He becomes insecure. But it also comes down to a deeper meaning, something that is isolated within him as a very personal identity experience that he struggles to even comprehend and grasp, and as a journey that he will have to face. Tokyo is a great example of someone that felt like they were nothing within the world, that they didn't have a place to belong or that they could never leave an impact. He's turned into this prideful, powerful, and stoic young man. Yet at his core, he still kept his emotionally driven nature. He questions a lot. He looks for better options. He tries to see the best in people, even if they're trying to kill him. And while it doesn't always work in his favor and may even be naive, he still holds on to it and he still cherishes it. Ely has always been out there. She's always been fun and energetic straight from the beginning, and nothing has realistically changed other than her demeanor. Over the time of being a Choujin and using her powers to help people, she's calmed down quite a lot. She's seen the severity of the world, the amount of injuries that people take, the length that other characters push themselves to accomplish a goal. She becomes a lot more emotionally driven, but still keeping her frenetic, aggressive energy when needed, until now. After the experience that she has just gone through, something tells me that her personality is going to be very somber, very upset, very distraught, and very unsure. Ely has always been a backbone to both Tokyo and Azuma, someone that they can rely on very heavily, someone they can go to for support. But now the problem turns back onto her. Who can she rely on? Who who can she hope to help her or to even understand the things that she's currently going through. These are things that put her in danger, that put her friends' lives in danger. And for someone that always looks out for her friends, she's going to sacrifice herself so they don't have to experience the horrors that she's currently witnessing. More and more, this calamity grows closer. The mysterious of X is constantly shifting, and the value of Ishida's main characters are all over the place. But that is the beauty of it. He spent so much time misdirecting, so much time building and deconstructing, combining them together, giving them their own moments to shine in equal manner. Now it's Ely's turn to take front stage and center. The question is, does her value stay as a main character? Because if she leaves, her value will now have to be twisted into something that is both passive and aggressive. What Ishida has managed to accomplish with these three over 4, almost 5 years now is absolutely incredible. Beautiful characters, they're entertaining to read, they're wonderfully introspective, and the amount that you can explore them is endless. Juggling 3 main characters and their value is not an easy feat. It takes a meticulous understanding of time and crafting the world almost perfectly so no character gets left behind, so no character has their value compromised. You could easily put all 3 of them into Hall of Fame category, right next to his other main character, Kaneki from Tokyo Ghoul.